down in the mud and covered in blood. Here's your look at new McFarlane toys, Warhammer 40,000 Darktide Veteran Guardsman. Imperial Guard regiments are often called upon to fight grueling wars of attrition lasting years or even decades. As time passes, each company will shrink in size as casualties take their inevitable toll. Veterans are battle-hardened elites, the first squad into an assault and the last to retreat. First, before we begin things, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the new Warhammer 40,000 Darktide Veteran Guardsman. Again, I'm not really sure how I'm going to be able to fit that all in the title, but I'll find a way. But they were nice enough to provide this sample that we're about to have a look at. I'm going to grab the tape measure now, as I always do in these videos, to calculate just how tall the figure stands. In this case, the Veteran Guardsman stands 6.5 inches in height, or the figure is about 16.5 centimeters tall. For those that watched my earlier review of the Trader Guard, here's what the figure looks like now compared along with the Veteran Guardsman. Granted, in this case, I've got the Trader Guard actually in a different pose. He's not standing museum straight like the Veteran Guardsman we're about to have a look at. If I was to have him straight, though, he is obviously going to be a little bit taller. Shoulders are about the same. Everything lines up about the same, and it almost looks as if they're using the same lower bodies as one another. As for the figure's accessories, though, the Veteran Guardsman comes included with the same Warhammer 40,000 display stand as the previously looked at Trader Guard. As you can see, they printed down below nice and bright Warhammer 40,000 branded on there. And then just off to that, you can see in the corner, there's one single peg that's going to plug to the underside of Veteran Guardsman's feet. Move that to the side. The figure then also comes included some pretty interesting accessories, the first of which we'll have a look at is the Lays pistol. It's smaller than the one that we got included with the Trader Guard. Trader Guard was a full-out rifle, but this is a slightly smaller firearm. Wielded in the hand the same way, using the same plastic and coloring as the one that came included also with the Trader Guard. Silver down below for the handle, while the majority of the gun that you can see has all been molded here in a black plastic. It does actually fit into either one of his hands. The good thing, at least, about the Veteran Guardsman is that his hands are already designed to have trigger-firing fingers. So if you want to have him wielding just one, or in the case of having wielding two, he actually is set and good to go. We're just going to put it in his hand for the time being. There is no other place that I can see also here on this that actually stores the Lays pistol. There's no holster or anything located on the figure's body anywhere that I can see. One of the coolest accessories by far, the figure comes also included with the chainsword. The chainsword is molded nicely, although unfortunately it doesn't have any paint to speak of. Granted, it does look like they did paint, obviously, the teeth for the chainsaw portion of things, but it looks like the rest of it has sort of been relegated only just to that sort of off-rusted gunmetal gray that they've decided to use. I would have liked to have seen if they could have gone and painted the symbols in there, for example, or even just added a little bit of wear and tear paint to this, so it looks like it's been quite used. I would love to also see this as a bloodied version as well, maybe a future release down the road. But again, like this does also fit in his hands. The beauty, though, of the figures here, the Veteran Guardsman and also the earlier looked at Trader Guard have pretty soft plastic in their hands. So when it comes to actually getting the weapons into their hands, they're really easy to do. And also, too, because the figure does benefit having so much articulation, you can really do a lot of cool things when it comes to posing the figure. Let's go ahead for right now and remove all those accessories. We're just going to put those to the side. Don't worry, they'll come back. We'll come back at the end of this video. Getting, though, a closer look at the head sculpt here for Veteran Guardsman. I do like the name, and I do also like the designing of the character. He does have what looks to be a breathing mask here in the front of his face, so goggles are also present, so it's hard to really make out the face that would have been underneath this. The coloring is suggested. There's not really a lot of coloring added to the figure. It's pretty accurate, I think, to the way the original game designs have him. Mostly an all-black cast plastic figure, and then, of course, you've got elements added in there as well of a very similar, almost color to the black, but instead it's actually more of a military green. But again, like the head sculpt is really good on this figure. No complaints at all. I also like the way they frosted over the goggles so you can't actually make out the eyes. A little bit of silver there. It goes a long way on the sides of the actual mask. And again, you've got this beautiful crest logo here on the top of the helmet. The green is, again, pretty close to the black that we're getting here. So at a glance, if you just to pass by this, it looks like a lot of the same colors are sort of the same. But in fact, actually, the green does work quite well with the black. And you got these nice little pops of additional white that just bring a lot of extra much needed color to the palette here. He does also, of course, have the bandolier straps here on the sides that actually look like they store some pockets. It also looks like perhaps a compass or a watch. Also looks like there's a grenade, another pack here on the bottom, and also looks like he has a canteen located on the other side as well. This is softer plastic, but what they've done is they've attached it on both the sides. So while it's loose down here, there's no way you can actually move it further up on the figure's torso. I like the little bit of silver that they've also added to the belt buckle of the skull. Man, I really wish I could have a belt buckle that looks as cool as this. He's got a few little pockets there on the side. Sadly, though, for the pockets here on the side, it doesn't look like they've added any little bit of paint to it. It looks like, from what at least I can see, it's the same coloring of plastic as the rest of the figure's legs. I'm glad to at least see that they did put the knee guards as a different color. And matching that, they had put also the same green down below here on the tops of his boots. But again, when you look at the back of it, there's a lot of nice little straps here that they've sculpted in. I wish that they could have gone and added just a little bit of paint. Not a lot, but just a little bit, maybe on the snaps on the sides, for example, either painting them black or painting them silver. Something just to break up a lot of this green and a lot of the black that the figure has. For the articulation, though, we're going to start with the head sculpt for the veteran guardsman. The head does rotate, as you would imagine, all the way around. It's on a ball joint, after all. Head does look down to only about there. Head does also look up, only to about there. Head also does rock back and forth. Shoulders, now, the thing about the shoulders, you may going to have a little more of a problem. As you're moving the shoulders up, you may find yourself compelled to bring those shoulder pads up, because the shoulder pads are actually attached right here. They're not attached to the top. But when you are bringing the figure's arms outward, for example, you're going to probably want to bring these out just a little bit so they can clear the point beyond the 45-degree angle bend. Here, I'm actually pulling off successfully 90 degrees. Here, this one comes up just a little bit short. The arms do rotate, though, all the way around. The figure does have a bicep swivel. And again, like the shoulder pad is attached to the top of the bicep, not to the top of the shoulder. Figure does have a nice generous double hinge on the elbow. And as well to that, you can also rotate the hand all the way around. And even though he does have the bandolier straps on either side, the figure does actually still manage to pull off a pretty successful ball joint. I don't feel like as I'm rotating this around, I'm going to be ripping and tearing this at all. Although one area right here, the more I'm rotating, you kind of see it looks like there's a little bit of stretch. So you don't want to rotate it too far, perhaps this way. But again, it does move up and down quite a bit. As for the legs are once again seeming to be on ratcheted joints, so you can bring those thighs out quite easily, in fact. You can take those legs and as well move them forward and move them back. As you are moving them forward, though, you'll notice right away the lower part of, well, what will be the top of those waist is a softer plastic. As you're moving it forward, it's concealing the joint, but as you're also moving the leg forward, you're going to be stretching the plastic that's part of this. So you're probably going to be noticing that when you put the leg back to its normal place, you may notice a little bit of frayed plastic at the top where the plastic is stretched. They also have sculpted the top of the pants here, so close to this, in fact, that you can't help but actually stretch that plastic every single time you move the legs forward and back. It does have a double hinge on the knee, though, and nice to see that. The figure also does possess a double hinge, or single hinge, I should say, for the ankle. You can also rock it back and forth, and the figure does also have toe articulation. Although the toe articulation on this figure here is extremely tight. Precautionary, in precaution, I should say, to this review, I didn't actually heat this up. Just assuming I could probably loosen it up over the course of this video, it is still tight, though. So I'm going to probably want to take a few hairdryer passes past this, or even submerge it in hot water just to get that ankle pivot. Short of that, though, it's a nice looking figure. I also like the way the accessories go well to this figure as well, and because the figure does have, in this case, 2 gripping hands, you can actually have him wielding both weapons at the same time. Again, we'll just move this one over, the veteran guardsman that we just finished having a look at, and bring in the previously looked at trader guard. Overall, really nice design figures. When, again, I feel like the lower half of their bodies, this part here, specifically for the ankles, well, not the ankles, the thighs, the calves, not the boots, possibly even, in fact, looking at the shoes look like they might even be reusing as well. And even looking at the guard parts of the boots are also identical too. So it does look like from the waist down, short of a few little things like the skirting here, for example, on Trader Guard, it looks like they are using the same molding, which is fine. If we are getting more figures as a resulting of them using more molds, keeping in mind as well, they're part of the military, so it makes common sense as well that they're going to be using very similar costumes as well with any of the people that are enlisting in it. I have only casually played Warhammer, so my interest in this line stems more so from the way they've sculpted and painted these figures. Granted, if I was all in when it came to playing Warhammer, I might even see myself actually army building a couple of these. Like the Trader Guard, for example, and the Veteran Guardsman, 2 figures we've already had a look at here on this channel. Very much I could see myself, if I was to see myself in an alternate reality of one that played Warhammer all the time, yeah, I could definitely see myself army building these to death and having entire shelf space full of them. Maybe it's all for the better reasons, especially for my wallet and budget, that I'm not as much into Warhammer, but it's not to say I still can't appreciate the sculpting that McFarlane's team actually have put into these pieces that we've looked at so far. The colors are very muted here. In this case, the Veteran Guardsman. A lot of the blacks blend quite well into the military green that they've used. But again, like the colors do work quite well, and then you've got the straps of the bandolier to match the colorings of the belt, and that does help to bring a little break up to the coloring. The stripes also added to the shoulder, and the silver also added in key component areas of the costume does bring a rather nice looking figure altogether. I do like the accessories on this one, I think, a little bit more than the earlier looked at Trader Guard. I like the Lays pistol, but I especially like the chainsaw sword. This is certainly something, short of maybe just adding a little bit of paint, that does help to showcase the figure when you got this guy on the shelf. What do you guys think, though, of the Veteran Guardsman? Have you had any chance to be collecting the Warhammer 40,000 figures? If you have you picked up either one of these? And if you also have, how many of those figures have you collected so far? Are you one that's notorious for army building your figures, and have you army build any of these figures that we looked at so far? We are, of course, going to be looking at some more Warhammer 40,000, so if that's the kind of thing you guys are into, make sure you're coming back to this channel, though, on a regular basis. In the meantime, though, I'd like to thank again the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the Warhammer 40,000 Darktide Veteran Guardsman. Still not sure how I'm going to be able to fit that all in the title. If you enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and do certainly want to stick around for more, then make sure, if you haven't already done so, that you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.